Previously on Yu-Gi-Oh! CG, we took a look at the second booster set, which followed the introduction of the expert rules. The primary boost was in ways of better equipped cards to make the alternate deck meta viable. They also added more mid-class monsters to further emphasize the new rule set. And in many ways, Konami succeeded in making Booster 2 a boost the game needed. But with a new volume comes new surprises, so will Konami be able to keep up the momentum, or will they falter? Let's find out only a few days later on May 27, 1999. Volume 3 is quite a groundbreaking set with its 50-card lineup. I mean, firstly, even though it was right after B2, V3 included reprints of relevant cards like Rogue Doll and Giant Mech Soldier. Remember, B2 was from those card-ass vending machines, which meant obtaining some of these powerful cards was harder, and thus having a core set release meant you could now update your decks easier. V3 also gave us the first secret rare in Gaia the Dragon Champion. While Fusion still had inherent issues, Gaia bolstered a sturdy attack stat, and given most duels were running Curse of Dragon and 1 to 2 Blue Eyes, it wasn't out of the question that you could, in theory, run a dedicated Gaia deck, and thus the real first Fusion deck was born. There were some interesting cards too, like Gravedigger Ghoul that introduces the concept of banish cards, ooh. And straight from the manga, we have Red Eyes Black Dragon, yeah, about time. Unfortunately, this was the expert rules era, and as such, Red Eyes didn't see much interest beyond collectors. It was a little bit too late. The real focus on V3 was most definitely on the introduction of effect monsters. These darkened monsters are like a mix of monsters and back row cards. While they lack solid stats and take a turn to activate their effects, they still contain generally decent effects. What we know this freshman lineup to be flip effect monsters, back then the term didn't exist. Rather, the card simply stated, quote, "When the monster is flipped, face up," unquote. This would be the case until Series 2, but for confusion's sake, I'll refer to them as their specified forms. Either the case, all of a sudden, you have new criteria for card evaluation as opposed to pure punching weight as seen before. After all, a set monster could now essentially contain a trap. And with wall monsters so abundant, you, as a player, have a choice on what to set, and the opponent, an option on what and how to attack. Let's take Maneater Bug as a prime example as a monster that both duelists need to play around. It could destroy a monster on the field, which would severely punish those playing tribute monsters or using the equip strategy. Hane, while weaker than Bug, was also great for these reasons and possibly more of a side deck option. Skelangel could offset card loss or gain you advantage should you be able to make use of it post-effect like for a tribute summon. Arm Ninja was only there for equip and field decks since, remember, Swords of Revealing Light does not stay on the field at this time, which for that matter made him significantly less useful than Bug or Hane, which could get rid of the monster threat itself. Lastly, there's the first normal rare card in the game, which is a short print rare, Reaper of the Cards. Reaper stood out to people for its unique stats, 1380, 1930. When reading the digits using Japanese kunyomi and onyomi pronunciations for attack and defense respectively, it roughly translates to, quote, "You are going to a secret mountain," unquote, which is a reference to Japanese folklore where death gods lead people to mountains to die. Yikes. His effect otherwise lets you deal with Trap Hold primarily, but being a mid-level monster makes it hard to play. Interestingly, the new Fusion Barox, which Panic plays in the manga, also contains unorthodox stats. I can't find anything on what his name should be translated to, but from my own translation, it could roughly mean Child of the Secret Mountain or Last Child of the Secret Mountain, which would fit his demonic appearance as a denizen who was once brought into the Shinigami's domain. Going back to the flips, they were questioned at the time. Are they too slow and unreliable when compared to equip magic? Keep in mind, while new, plenty of flip hate exists. Dark Hole and Raigeki destroy them without their flip effects activating. Swords of Revealing Light could protect your own flips, and it would force flip and effect activation, which could be beneficial if your opponent had a Bug or Hane and was forced to target one of their own monsters. And then Dark Piercing Light gained usage for being a budget-friendly version of Swords. There was also Stop Defense that could force a single face-down monster into face-up attack position. This had additional singular usage since Fissure cannot target a set. Plus, Stop could also hit face-up monsters, in which both Flips and Walls had rather low attack stats. Technically speaking, Stop does nothing, so you need to plan to have a follow-up attack beforehand. It's a card for more tactical duelists. On the wall side, we got Giant Soldier of Stone, which has a 2k defense and a comparable 1300 punch, a card that was easier to obtain and better than Aqua Madoor. And with Invigoration, 1700 attack wasn't anything to scoff at. Though when it comes to individual monsters, Rogue Doll reprint aside, Skull Red Bird is the new flair here. Woo! 1550 attack meant this winged beast could beat over any of the rising 1500 stars like Uraby and Giant Flea. So your top two fighters were in a class of their own. Although the single standout card in V3 had to be the magic card, Pot of Greed. What's there to be said about it? Draw 2 cards. It's a free advantage in an era where advantage was rare. And don't forget, every card is currently unlimited at 3 copies. An extra card in hand is no joke, and unlike Magic the Gathering, the draw was free, so literally any deck could run it, which in turn made duels that much quicker. Equipped decks certainly enjoyed this since they couldn't make much use out of flips compared to good stuff. Even though it was a common, there was still a chance you wouldn't pull this card. Thankfully, it was around this time when stores started to sell singles more frequently than before, where it was a small corner in the store selling products. Something interesting, the original print includes self-destruction text, which was odd considering that it was for trap cards. Perhaps at one point in development, Pot was intended to be a trap to balance it out. And if you enjoy watching the Janjo Zone, then be sure to engage with the video by liking, subscribing, or joining my Patreon, since $2 a month is more to me than if this video got 1,000 views. Your help goes a long way. This is not to say that the set was full of roses. While hierarchy of cards have inherently existed, like with, say, Tomasaurus, Sandstone may be the first meme card, as it was the first truly bad tribute monster. 1300, 1600 for one tribute is just bizarre when considering Giant Soldier of Stone was released in the same set. It's the first time duelists could actively see Konami creating filler cards, much like whatever this weak leg card is. Alongside various new fusions, we also received Rare Fish, a unique fusion that needs a fusion monster as material. What? Yeah, you need Enchanting Mermaid, Petite Angel, Mystical Sheep number 2, Fusionist, and 2 polymerizations for a monster with a middling 1500 attack stat. Oof. It could have had interesting implications had Konami gone in this direction of fusing fusion monsters into bigger threats. But alas, we just have this fish. Perhaps that's why Fusionist was called what it was, to be a fusion conduit. The meta would also contain the June 1999 limited edition 1 packs. These were 3 packs that contained 3 cards each, available by mail order from Weekly Shonen Jump magazine. The cards were previously Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters in-game promo cards, so veteran duelists may already have a connection to these, cards that the Western audience may remember from the McDonald's pack. Most of the cards were duds though. Millennium Shield did have some fringe uses as the strongest defender in the game, blocking even Blue Eyes, but it was a prime target for Fissure or a counterattack with Stop Defense. Takraminos and Fairy's Gift had solid attack stats, with them fitting into a pure beatdown or the water-equipped deck and the Yami deck respectively. But that was it for Limited Edition 1. The Volume 3 format of Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG was another interesting time for the game. It still has some regional exclusive, with the bulk of the cards being reminiscent of early 2002 TCG. Give us Wandering Doomed already! Oddly enough, it was a pivot from the equip-centric focus on B2, whereas V3 seemed to have either taken a step back in favor of monster effects, or they were obligated to finish the type-specific equip cards. Because, like I alluded to earlier, equip decks weren't, well, equipped to handle flips very well, nor did they have the proper deck space to make use of the utility. The Good Stuff Lower Axis deck got the extra buff in an era that added more combo potential and thought-provoking gameplay. The game state was to gain advantage with low-class monsters until you could make a decisive blow with a tribute monster, or rather mid-class due to Bug and Hane now being around and deterring high-class builds. Even when looking at the beater options, they did have a variety of attributes, which made aesthetic variety a meta option when compared to attribute-based equipped decks. This is to say, deck construction in general did increase, even if it was more rogue options. It certainly did feel like a new volume in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was opened, and if the direction of effects is continued, then who knows where it'll take the game next? Tune in next time to find out. Seriously, what's up with that leg card? It's kinda sexy.